Hello, Mason Storm here. I'm a pretty big fan of coffee, drink it all the time. I don't add anything to it, usually just have black coffee, and you know what goes good with black coffee? Sweet coffee cake. Although my coffee cake isn't the sweetest one in the world, but it does definitely taste very good. So let's get started. The ingredients to make the body of the cake consist of 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 cup of butter, 3 eggs, 1 cup of sour cream, 1 cup of honey, and 3 cups of flour. Okay, now we get our mixing bowl out. We're going to be doing the 2 mixing bowl strategy with a wet and a dry. So we're just going to put the sifter on top and start sifting in our flour. Once our flour is in there, then we can start adding the rest of our dry ingredients. So we're going to add in our baking powder and our cinnamon, and then we're going to toss our salt into the bowl itself. Finish sifting everything and then give it a bit of a stir. And you don't have to stir for too long. It mixes pretty easily. It's all just powder anyway. Anyway, we'll get out another bowl, and for this one we're going to be doing our wet stuff. So to begin with, we're going to add our eggs to the bowl and we're going to beat them. For whatever reason, I decided to beat them with a spatula. Ideally, you'd use like a wooden spoon or a fork or something, but I figured that I could do the rest of this with the spatula, and that would limit the amount of dishes I had. Of course, it works great for getting the honey out of the bowl, as honey is very difficult to maneuver. And now we're going to add in our sour cream, then our vanilla, and our butter. Our butter's still a little bit hard at this point, so I'm just going to heat it up in the microwave to soften it a bit. And then we'll start to mix our stuff together, which shouldn't take too long. But I didn't melt the butter enough, so it still was a little bit lumpy, so I had to put a little bit of extra elbow grease in the mixing process. When you make this for yourself, melt it a little bit more than I did. Maybe not quite liquid, but close. And now that we're done mixing our liquids, we're going to bring back our solids. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to mix part of the liquids in, and then we're just going to stir it around a little bit so it starts to combine, and then pour the rest of the liquids in. We're going to do a 2-stage additive process. This seemed to have worked out pretty good. And as you can see, there is still quite a bit of lumps in the butter, but once I start mixing it with the wooden spoon, I'm able to mix more aggressively and get rid of the little butter clumps that are still left in. And if you have a little clump of butter in your cake, even at the end, it's not really a big deal. It would actually probably taste good. Almost as if you buttered the cake. And now that we're done mixing, well, any second now I'll be done the mixing process, we can move on to getting a pan ready. So I'm just going to use a standard issue bundt pan, and then I'm going to butter it, of course. But before we put the cake in, which I'm about to do right here because I forgot a step, we need to make our streusel topping. Now to do that, I got half a cup of sugar, brown sugar, and flour, and a 1/4 cup of butter. And then I'll use a little bit of cinnamon as well, about a tablespoon. And now to start making our streusel, we'll use a small mixing bowl, and then we'll add in our sugar, and then we'll add in our brown sugar, and follow that up with our flour, and of course our butter, and we can't forget our cinnamon. Now I'm just going to use a fork to kind of mash this together. And if you're wondering what this streusel is, it's kind of that powdery, clumpy, sugary mixture that goes on the top as well as in between the layers of the cake. It's really the delicious stuff that kind of brings the whole thing together. The crumble, the crisp, yeah, that type of stuff. I'm not really liking how this is going with the fork, so I'm going to go get my pastry knife out and use that because this is just infuriating. And the pastry knife makes light work of mixing together the streusel. And now that we got our streusel all kind of combined together, we can go back to working on our cake. So what we're going to do is we're going to pour our streusel right in the bottom, and then we're going to follow it up with the cake mix. As you can see here, I forgot to put the streusel down. Actually, at the time of making this, I was going to make the streusel and then put it in the middle, and then I was going to put it on the top, and then I forgot that the bundt pan makes the cake upside down, and it was at this point that misery ensued, and I felt the eternal torment of the inadequacies of my cake making style. Of course, now that I have half the batter inside the bundt pan, I'm going to put a layer of the streusel in. Unfortunately, this is kind of the best I can do given the current circumstances, but it's still quite delicious, and you want to at least have one layer of the stuff because it's amazing. And then once we have a layer down, it's time for more cake. Now the way that you make this is you put cake down, then you put streusel down, then you put more cake down, and more streusel. And the more layers you have, the more little stripes of sugary goodness the cake will have. But due to the way I screwed up at the start of this, I only really was able to have one good layer. I put a bunch of streusel in right near the top as I finished emptying the bowl. And this did give a little bit of added flavor and texture to the bottom of the cake. But it was not quite my desired final result. But it still was quite delicious, and I can't complain about that. And now that we're done with that, we'll toss her in the oven at 350 degrees. Because I used a large bundt pan, the cake's quite tall, so it took quite a while to cook, so it took me like 40 minutes. But if you use a thinner pan, about 20, it just depends. And of course, do the old toothpick test to tell readiness. And be aware that if you just stick it right into the streusel, it may come out gooey even though it's already done, just because of the nature of streusel. And now I'm going to let it sit for about 20 minutes and then get it out of the pan, kind of cutting around and then putting the plate on top and giving it the old dump twist thing. Either way, I thought the cake turned out really well. I enjoyed the flavor, the taste, and the texture. It was quite good too, considering how much less sugar this cake has than most coffee cakes for recipes I was looking at. So let me know in the comments below how you make your coffee cake, and if you like my videos and would like to see more of them, please like and subscribe. And until next time, stay awesome.